Joining me now, MS Now national security reporter David Rohde in D.C., MS Now contributor Inzamam Rashid in Dubai, and national security correspondent with NPR, Greg Meyer. David, I'll start with you. One of the two crew members of the down jet has been rescued. But what do we know right now about the other? And is there anything else about how and when this happened you can tell me?
Yeah, I just had a U.S. official who's been helping us throughout the day. They confirmed, and other outlets have been reporting this, but the F-15 was shot down by Iranian forces. That's a big propaganda success for Iran. As you mentioned earlier, the president has said in recent remarks that their Air Force has been, or their ability to threaten U.S. planes has been eliminated. This downing of an American F-15, shows that not to be true, at least in this instance. In terms of the second pilot, the one who's not been rescued, we don't have any immediate updates. Pilots are trained extensively for how to land and survive, and then also to try to evade capture. So night is falling in Iran. That may help rescue efforts because U.S. helicopters and special forces and others that are trying to rescue this pilot, if they're still free, will be able to maneuver around at night with night vision technology in ways that Iranian forces can't. It sounds like it's a very rural province bordering Iraq. That's the reporting from the Wall Street Journal. That could help the pilot evade capture. But at this point, we don't know where this pilot is and whether they're in Iranian custody. And maybe American forces have just pulled them up from the ground, but they wouldn't want to confirm anything until that pilot is safe. So we'll keep making calls.
Inzamam, you heard David there say that this plays into the Iranian regime's propaganda. And I want to read you a post from Iran's parliament speaker. After defeating Iran 37 times in a row, this brilliant no-strategy war they started has now been downgraded from regime change to, hey, can anyone find our pilots, please? Wow, what incredible progress, absolute geniuses. Inzamam, how are people in Iran, but also in the wider region, responding to this news today?
Well, Antonio, look, if it is true that Iran shot down this U.S. fighter jet, this F-15, which it seems like it is, something that Iran had claimed earlier on today. They were the first ones who'd reported that they'd targeted a U.S. fighter jet and shot it down. But obviously, we had to get all of that confirmation from a number of sources. They will be celebrating this evening because they will see this as some sort of a victory and also a reminder to not just the president, President Trump, but also the wider world, particularly those in the region, that they still very much have the capabilities to cause disruption in this conflict. We've seen that as they continue to target Gulf countries and continue to strike Israel as well. But we've seen that today as a result of them downing this F-15 fighter jet. And that will be a subtle reminder to the region that despite the president's suggestions that they have destroyed the capabilities of its military, that they can still cause significant damage. But look, if Iran manages to capture this current missing pilot, this will really change the course of this conflict, because essentially then they would have a U.S. pilot as hostage. They will be able to use that pilot as some form of negotiations. And Iran tonight is using all of its efforts right down to everyday people, encouraging everyday people in the two provinces that they've specifically named to go out and to search for this missing pilot. So much so that state TV there has said that there will be a reward, a prize for anyone who actually finds this U.S. pilot and returns them to whether the Iranian military or the forces in the region. So I think there is clearly tonight a lot of joy within Iran that they've managed to shoot down this U.S. plane. But also, I think if there is a capture of this U.S. pilot, there will be significant thoughts about what happens in the future of this conflict. It could potentially be a big moment. And as I mentioned there, Antonio, as well, is that Iran continues to target its Gulf neighbors. It continues to target Israel as well, just as Israel and the U.S. continue the fighting tonight inside Iran as well. You mentioned about that bridge being targeted yesterday. There's been further attacks once again today. Iran has also retaliated here in the UAE with 22 ballistic missiles and also 47 drones. One person has been killed at a gas facility in Abu Dhabi, with 4 people injured there. In Kuwait, an oil facility has been targeted, causing significant damage as well. So look, we're heading into a 6th week of this conflict. And whilst there might be a pivotal moment this evening in Iran with this US fighter jet, the fighting around this conflict very much continues. Antonia.
Greg, since Iran has made it very clear that they are capable of retaliation, that we did not, in fact, annihilate or obliterate their air defenses, what conversations do you know or expect are happening at the Pentagon right now?
Well, they're going to ask how this happened, because we've seen not just in recent days, but really I think for at least a couple weeks where the U.S. has been sending slow, low-flying aircraft in, feeling that it was safe or the risk was minimal. We're talking about Apache helicopters, A-10 planes, B-52 bombers, not the kind of aircraft you would be sending over Iranian territory if you felt they still had strong air defenses. And this was a fighter jet that has gone down. It was a fast, nimble plane that you certainly wouldn't expect after 5 weeks, that they had a pretty good sense. Shows Iran still has some capabilities, it appears, in addition to all of the regional sites we've mentioned that have been hit. And one other was in Kuwait, where a desalination plant was hit. So I think it's really going to force the Pentagon to say, what sort of capabilities does Iran have left? And then they're still going to have some leverage, even if President Trump does want to bring this war to an end in the next 2 or 3 weeks, as he said.
And Greg, I think typically, or at least for among the civilian population, when you hear the term search and rescue, you imagine a boots on the ground effort. We, of course, do not yet have boots on the ground, although I know that the U.S. and Israel have intelligence inside Iran. Can you give us a sense of what this effort actually looks like, what search and rescue means at this stage in the conflict?
Yeah, so since, as you say, there are probably no troops that you could use in that area. On social media, we have seen aircraft, helicopters, and fixed-wing planes that seem to be over in that region that are appearing. Now, that's extremely dangerous for those planes. If a jet fighter has gone down from Iranian fire, then certainly a helicopter or a slower fixed-wing plane would be very vulnerable as well. These 2 crew members, if they ejected, they have transponders that could help locate them, and I would certainly think that was crucial in the one who has been rescued. It should certainly help locate the other one. And although it is now nighttime in Iran, the signal would still be there, and the U.S., with all its night vision capabilities, should be able to find someone. That airman is trying to stay hidden, with Iranians potentially looking for him. So he or she is in a very difficult position, but should be able to be located with the transponder that would be giving off a signal.
David, given your experience, personal and professional, on stories like this, how grave are the consequences if a U.S. service member is captured by the IRGC?
If they capture this service member, they'll actually want to keep them alive. It's the propaganda value that is very important to them. The video of just Iranian IRGC members holding an American pilot who's been captured is a huge boost for them, and they'll want to push that across the region. There is extensive training, as Greg was talking about. There's actually a training called SERE. It's S-E-R-E. S is survival. Pilots get this, commandos, anyone who might be captured. So survival first, just getting to the ground and hopefully not being injured. If this pilot was injured when they parachute to the ground, that's going to make it easier for the Iranians to capture them. The E is for evasion, to try to evade capture, and hopefully the transponder will lead folks to come in and rescue this person. The last R, the next letter, is for resistance. That's if you are captured and interrogated. you will, not give up military information. They could try to coerce this pilot into making statements. And then the last E for SERE is escape. And there is a duty for American military members to try to escape. As you mentioned, I had an experience. I was abducted by the Taliban. I did find that they treated me well initially. They were hostile, but they knew, keeping me alive, that I was very valuable as a hostage. So I think they would keep this pilot alive for propaganda purposes.
Thank you for sharing that personal experience, David. Inzamam, Greg and David have touched on the recalculations the U.S., the Pentagon, may be making on our side. How do you think the Gulf states are reading this moment?
Yeah, I think the Gulf states will be watching this moment carefully, because all the while they've been listening to President Trump specifically talk about the operation inside Iran alongside with Israel. And they've been hearing the words that, well, their capabilities, particularly their military capabilities, have reduced significantly, or almost to none. But again, they will be questioning that this evening, because we've seen the impact that the Iranian military has managed to have by taking down this fighter jet. There were also reports as well when the search operations were going on in the hours after this fighter jet was taken down, that the IRGC were also trying to target some of those search planes, the Black Hawk helicopters that were in the area, in the skies over Iran, trying to search for these pilots. So I think there will be big questions from the Gulf tonight as to what happens next in this conflict. We know President Trump has given some form of a timescale of 2 to 3 weeks, but as the fighting very much continues, and as the US and Israel seem to be ramping up their aggression inside Iran, the Gulf states will be waiting to see what Iran does in retaliation, and we're already seeing some of that today.